Hello and welcome to the Rally Point with Dominic Fielder, the author of the King's German series, and myself, Rob McLaren, the author of the Jobert series. Hello, Dominic Fielder.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm very, very well. I'm particularly well to this evening. Each month at the Rally Point, we catch up with friends who enjoy the Napoleonic period. We record the first 30 minutes of the gathering, but once the recording is over, we remain online and the conversation continues. This month is the 2024 annual wrap-up, and we'd like to welcome all our friends to the Rally Point from all over the world. Dominic Fielder, over to you.
Well, Rob, I was going to say, it really does feel like a group of friends now. Since we started this craziness, and I was looking back at your videos, thought what a rich selection of just unique perspectives on the period we've gathered so far. Research material, all sorts of things. You sent out a big question, Rob, to choose 2 or 3 highlights from the year. It's like choosing a favorite child. I couldn't find it. I've just worked through them, and every one is a gem. There really hasn't been a dud. So, Rob, where would you start from the last year?
My Napoleonic year so far would be completing another book in my series. I've received my shako. You can just see it there, and my sword.
I can, yeah.
It's allowed me to research and understand how soldiers' equipment gets in the way, that's been quite interesting. And I've had the opportunity to war game with friends all over Australia, which is quite exciting. Don McLean, I went down to Don's place for a weekend and did a fantastic war game there. Mark Robbins has invited me down to Melbourne. I've been with Mark and his friends in Melbourne wargaming. So that's absolutely been my highlight. And looking forward to 2025, another book has just begun, so I'm looking forward to completing that. I'm planning a trip to Europe for a research trip in September, October, hoping to meet up with many of the gentlemen on the screen now. And there's this exciting war game concept, battle command experience that we're doing with many of the people on the screen here, and we're basing it out of Melbourne. So that's an activity in January that we're hoping to stand up. And so yes, that would look forward to my coming Napoleonic year.
Well, I've got to say, I'm looking forward to that as well. And maybe we'll come back to that at the end. I'll be planning to move just before you arrive to the UK, by the way. I'll give you clues about my new address. I think our relationship will work better that way.
Yes.
When I look back at the year, I do like a bit of Hans Carl. He always gives us something. I know there's going to be his Prussian. I'm waiting for that Prussian light to come up. But more on the rifles. I've shamelessly stolen the idea of that sort of bouncing shot already in one of the books. I've just put that in. Mark, we're talking just before we started recording about the Liber, the soul, that I would pronounce that appallingly. But that idea of that the book inside of sort of a French habit, giving you a soldier's life, everything you can tell about that person, the description, things they've spent, their battle history, their campaign history, something I had no knowledge of at all. And that just came out of, Mark going through, the contents of a soldier's backpack and how organized it was. And here was me thinking, it's just sort of semi-shambolic, everything shoved in. Not at all. It's almost a work of art. Now that a work of art, it's like I thought this through. I almost did. The Keith Rock.
Yes, Keith Rocco
Experience. What, 3 books a decade. And there's Keith produced over 600 works of art. And we had that, just the moment, how? And the idea when he talked about building the D-Day um, work that he'd done, that was staggering to me. That really was. Talking of staggering, uh, Dr. Stephen Summerfield. Now, I honestly think that we need to be tapping up for some sort of commission because even when he sat there waiting for us to broadcast, he's clearly thinking about a new book. So you and I, Rob, we need to be in on that.
Yes, yes, yeah, exactly. It's part of the sponsorship for Rally.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're clearly giving him ideas. He's feeding off that. We're not seeing anything out of it.
That's right.
So I need you to sort that out. And then Gareth, the one thing you've done, Rob, the many things you've done, Rob, is somehow you've found amazing guests throughout the whole year. So I don't know how you do it. Keep doing it.
Okay.
But the names you're finding in the Napoleonic field, I think, oh my God, we got him.
Yes.
People I'm slightly in awe of speaking to, you've somehow got. You are the Napoleonic fluffer of the new age. You just find these people. They want to come on. They'll tell their story for half an hour. I just have to sit back and listen. It's the best part of the job.
Yes.
So, shall we? The thing that makes Rally Point to me though is the guys who are at the top of the screen. They sit there patiently. Listen to me prattle on, and then their questions are staggering. So, shall we hear from some of them? Highlights of the year and what they're looking forward to next year.
Well, 2024 has been a pretty good year for me. I mean, if I had to pick three highlights, I would say from a reenactment point of view, it was the garrison at Fontainebleau Palace this year, which I helped to co-organize, and it went really well. And we were very pleased to be able to get the 350 odd infantry reenactors of different groups, different nationalities, different conceptions of what reenactment is, all to work together as a single battalion divided into companies, but nobody thinking my group is my group. We're all one battalion. And it worked really good, and we got several great services sorted out, and the guard service, the poste de police, the sentinelle, all of this was fantastic. It was fantastic. Lots of preparations, but it worked. So I'm very happy with that. The second highlight I would say is more down to earth. A local event happened here about a 6-minute car drive to the east of where I live in Colmar. There was a battle in December 1814, and also a second very quick skirmish in January in 1813 between French dragoons and some Austrians dragoons and Russian Cossacks and Bavarian chevaux légers at a village called Sainte-Croix-en-Plaine. And after 5 years of the local association and other Napoleonic organizations in the area fundraising and raising awareness of this encounter, we now have unveiled, since the start of December this year, a brand new and much bigger memorial to this battle. So I invite any person who comes in Alsace near Neuf-Brisach or near Colmar to go and have a look at this wonderful memorial and enjoy the battlefield for what it is, especially since it was a cavalry-only battlefield, so even better for cavalrymen. So very happy that finally happened. And last but not least, the last highlight was probably last Wednesday. It's brand new. I've signed a contract with the town hall of Belfort, the famous fortification along the French eastern border. I'm now in charge of organizing 2 Napoleonic events there next year. That's pretty good, pretty cool. I'm very happy with that. Something I've been working on for a whole year. As for 2025, what am I looking forward to? Automatically, that leads on to organizing the two events, the two garrison events at Belfort, which I hope will be international. And again, building on the success of Fontainebleau, more immersion, more working together, more administration, more service. I'm also looking forward to organizing the Quatre Bras to Waterloo march, literally the Friday before the Waterloo weekend that's planned next year. We're going to be marching from an area close to Quatre Bras all the way to Waterloo. So it'll be a nice approach with wagons and all sorts of wonderful things like that. End of August, we have every 2 years we have a massive immersion campaign weekend at La Boissière École in the eastern Paris area. So that's also got to be organized. So I'm looking forward to that, but it's going to be a lot of work. So that's my 3 for next year. And I suppose the 4th one, which is the bonus, is the book, the French translation of Jaubert's first adventure will be available in the French language and hopefully will be selling like hotcakes. So that's what I'm looking forward to next year.
Highlights for last year, probably sort of Peter North's explanation of the French infantry uniforms at Waterloo. That certainly was very useful because I had all the bits, but nobody had ever actually said, sort of going how poorly the French were uniformed. And I hadn't seen the connection between the royal regiments and them being in the sort of uniform that we have representing in the campaign. So that really was sort of fascinating. And then meeting up in October with Peter and talking about publishing and talking about how to actually lay out and how to go about structuring sort of a book on that. And in the meantime, I've for Ken Trotman, I've written and done the layouts for 24 books in the last year. Of which 16 are mine. And there is on that probably the one I'm sort of proudest of is probably my French infantry flags 1750, 1791.
Yep, very good.
Which is, again, sort of, you've got reasonably large flags, etc. None of them have the horrible distortions that a number of modern people do, which is sort of showing shadows and sort of things like that. So it's actually flat color, because I find those distorting and very difficult to interpret. And sort of from that's sort of part of it. Then we've got the Grande Armée 1805, which I did a presentation on. And just before that, I produced the Russian 1812. The 1812 is fascinating just looking at the horrendous loss of life, because it was looking at all the attrition that down to regimental level. For the future, I'm currently writing. I'm currently dealing with the translation of Robert Crawford, who then later in his life was the commander of the Light Division. His translation of Tilka. This was The Art of War, and he did 2 of the 6 volumes by Tilka. And this was The Art of War in the 7 Years' War. And the first volume is on Maxim, and showing the different places where he could have, the Prussian commander could have better positioned his forces, etc. And there's a little bit that's very interesting about Saxon artillery. And the second volume is dealing with Kunersdorf. So that's fascinating. The Robert Crawford's family are basically a British family of spies, I think is the best way of putting it. And at various times they were detained by the French in Paris, and how they escaped, and that side is sort of quite fascinating, which might actually build into another book. And this was during the most of the interest is the revolutionary period, and then the Peace of Amiens, where practically the whole family were captured in or around Paris, and then it took them about 4 years for the uncle Quentin to arrange their escapes, who was a personal friend of Talleyrand. And so that's a sort of fascinating thing that I've just sort of uncovered sort of recently. And then hopefully I will finish the translation of the first part of Holland on French Revolutionary War infantry flags. And that's going to be fascinating, sort of, because I've now drawn about 150 of those flags.
Last year and the year before and this year has been dominated by my work with Scott Bowden. It's just been a huge, massive project, and I've just finished essentially a 50,000 word document on Murat in 1815. So, and Rob knows about it. We've talked ad nauseam about it, but that's just my year's been just full on writing this book. And of course, the beginning of the year was my Zoom meeting, which Stephen very nicely mentioned, working on that on the French uniforms 1815. That was for me a very rewarding bit of work. So that was quite a personal achievement for me. But we haven't done any wargaming, have we, Rob? I don't think so. Any Napoleonic wargaming?
Not well,
no,
not Napoleonic, but our ancient games.
Oh yeah, but this is Napoleonic. This is Napoleonic, Rob. So we don't talk. Look, I've really enjoyed all the Rally Point Zoom meetings. They've been fantastic. I really enjoyed, Stevens and Hans and Mark's and all the rest of the guys, their presentations. My big thing for next year is obviously getting volume 1 of our work published. So that's going to be a hopefully for the Napoleonic community a groundbreaking publication for everybody. It also follows on from the theme that Stephen was talking about with the French uniforms and the French Army 1815, the Bourbon French Army, and I think everyone will find it very, very interesting. So that's basically it, really. It's just, for me, it's been predictably continuous work on this 1815 book. So it's just dominated my life.
I'd just like to say it's been a terrific year for me, for somebody who is probably not one of the cognoscenti, one of the Illuminati, one of the thoughtful people who's deeply into it. My background was I was very fortunate to do part of my honours thesis on Napoleonic history and cavalry, and Rob and I went to school together. So I would say that for me, the highlights of this year have probably been to catch up with Rob and play the Battle of Quatre Bras using the La Bataille series, and to then sort of translate and think about all those things that we talk about as you push a little piece of cardboard around a board and go, I wonder what that actually felt like. So for me, the conversation we had translated into Rob and I having a far more fun and richer Napoleonic game about the Battle of Quatre Bras. And for me, I think for next year, I'm really looking forward to supporting Rob and the brigade battle activity that we're planning for Rivoli, and to listening to a little more of the, try not to be too smart, but the repartee come slight jabs of the smart people about the Napoleonics, and just making sure that we have the right colour flashes on the right shoulder as we go into our reenactments.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you very much, Dom.
this year, highlight, of course, was my fourth part in about the musket. So I was happy to finish this almost endless story. And then I also did take part in a podcast about such a terrible, obscure Battle of Hohenlinden, 3rd of December 1800, under Moreau, best French general and best French army. And I was also lucky to get eye surgery, so now I can see at least my model soldiers again, and I'm able to paint. And I had a big backlog, and now I enjoy painting model soldiers again.
That is wonderful news.
And
That
I
really
did a
is.
lot of reading about the first coalition warfare, like the Duke of York's Flanders campaign by Stephen Brown, and other books, because I'm not so much interested in late Napoleonic, and I try to avoid 1815 at all, because it's so paved, and all the myths are terrible about the 1815 campaign, in my view. Okay. Um, and looking forward maybe to talk about the Prussian army and maybe also the Saxon army of 1806, because I'm sick and tired to hear again and again that they fought like the Prussians in the 7 Years' War, and all the specialists are not even able to pronounce the names, like it's still our Stadt instead of our Stadt. I mean, even the French got it right, so why can't the English get it right? I'm always surprised, and it's terrible. So maybe we have a chance to speak about this. And yes, and the other X I have to grind is about the terrible pronunciation of foreign names by the English professors, high brass authors. I mean, they're not able to say maman. They are not able to say suit. It's terrible. I mean, they should put a bit effort. I realize I'm a foreigner, so
Oh,
among all this English speaking about all this
we're
English
all
speaking
foreigners.
people,
We're all
but
foreigners.
it's really it's terrible. Like I listened to a podcast and they said the Prussian General Thielmann, and I had to think, who the hell is Thielmann? And it was of course Thielmann. I mean, those people then they know the dirt of the fingernails of these personals, generals, but then they're not able to pronounce the names. So if you have an interest, I think you should also have an interest, especially when you do a podcast, how the names are pronounced. If you don't get it right, okay, fair enough. I do also butcher English names, I'm quite sure. But if people correct me, I try to improve. So that this is the ongoing campaign I will still wage in 2025.
Well, I haven't written 20 books on the Napoleonic period, and I'm not planning to write any books. As a barrister, I write enough in my working life, and I probably speak way too much anyway, as Rob knows. Look, the highlights of this year for me, from a Napoleonic viewpoint, I finally finished my epic scale Napoleonic army. I now ridiculously have 4 very large French and British and Prussian armies in different scales: 15 mil, 18 mil, no, 5 now, 12 mil, 25 mil, 28 mil, and it's ridiculous. But collecting figures has been the roadmap of my life, and so the epic scale this year was that task completed. Rob played the Lingy refight we fought last December. Rob commanded the Grouchet's wing and rode to glory, quite literally. And that was probably, of all the games I've played in the last 12 months, that was the highlight, because A, the French won, but B, it had a very good historical feel to it. In terms of this year going forward, well, Rivoli is going to be a big challenge. Rob's dobbed me in to organise all of the tabletop commanders, and as anyone who's dealt with wargamers knows, you can herd cats, because cats are far more docile and compliant than most wargamers. Rob's concept of us doing this over 2 days just doubles my job, and I don't know if we'll be able to do that, but it's always good to be aspirational, and that's something I'm looking forward to. Lots more games, continuing to take the shine off Rob's lucky bonnet to police. That's a wonderful achievement so far. So other than that, I've really enjoyed Rally Point, particularly Hans Karl's discourses on musketry, and your question, Dom, about oblique fire. Now it gives me great joy with a couple of my mates who've written Napoleonic rules down here, just pulling the wings off their flies and telling them it's all nonsense. So that's given me great pleasure. So thanks for that, Dom. Thanks for that, Hans Karl, and of course, thanks, Rob.
Jim, New Mexico Jim.
Yes, thank you.
How are we, sir?
At the risk of sounding overly solicitous, my high point in this year was discovering Rally Point. And after I
loved you already, Jim.
Pardon me?
We loved you already.
Thank you. My first session I attended was in May. That was Mark's presentation on the equipment carried in a Frenchman's sac à dos, and I found that very informative. But what I found even more valuable was the discussion and comments that occurred after that. And I realized that, one, I'm in the presence virtually of people who are experts in this field. They're authors, they're researchers, and I have instantaneous access to those folks just by asking a question. And I asked myself, how did I not know about this before? So that's been a very great highlight. I went and viewed Hans Karl's video on muskets, and I'm thinking, this is fabulous. And I've been working, apparently not too successfully, but I've been working trying to get my reenactment associates here in North America, as well as some of my friends in the UK, to be part of this. And I'm still working on it. I think it's incredibly valuable because I'm not a researcher or historian or writer, I'm a reenactor, but full of questions. And I'm finding that this is the audience that probably has the answers. Those answers are just not very well shared, perhaps. And I'm looking at ways of correcting that. For next year, I plan to attend 3 overseas events. I'll go to Waterloo. Perhaps I'll attend the immersive march from Quatre Bras to Waterloo. I will go to Mark's Le Boissier Col, and then I'll go to Austerlitz. And there's 2 events here in North America. And then I have other reenactment. I portray a Mexican soldier for War of Texas Independence reenactments, which is a teeny tiny little niche, but it's incredibly popular in Texas. And in spite of what you may have heard people say about Texas, me included, Texans are very friendly people. They're very welcoming. And you just go, this place of Goliad is right near Houston. They feed you twice. If you look thirsty, they give you beers. So I've been practicing looking thirsty. It's just a great time. But that's what I have looking forward to, and I wish to attend many more of these sessions. That's all.
Basically, I guess the biggest thing for me, the point was when I saw that. I think it was this year. I saw that bloody awful film. So that was a complete downer. The Ridley Scott pile of nerd. So I won't go into that, but there was definitely a low point of the year. I actually spent money to go to the IMAX cinema in Waterloo, which is about 25 quid or something, and there was people walking at halfway. I stuck it out, but it was an absolute abortion. But that was the low point of the year, I think. Napoleonic was. The high point was my local Wargamers club, which is sort of teetering along. We actually did a about I guess about a 12-person refight of Lutzen 1813, which is quite interesting. We did it using volley and bayonet, which is I think a good set of rules for a large battle you can fight in a reasonable amount of time. It's really throw 6s, 5s, that sort of thing, how you position things. And not this year, but last year I went on a quite expensive tour of all the battlefields of 1813 with the cultural experience, who are good but expensive, with a guy called Michael Leger, who I really liked his book on Napoleon in Germany. So that was interesting. But it was always interesting in this particular game. I was on the French left flank, and your man will have to give me my pronunciation, which being from London will not be perfect. I had Bertrand plus elements of another corps, and basically was able to sweep the Prussians from the field on the left wing on the outside of the quadrilateral of Grossgorgen, isn't it? I think it's called. Lutzen anyway. There's the 4 villages, and I was able to come around the left wing as the French did, and basically while the fighting was going in the middle, sweep them around. That was a really good game. Other than that, Napoleonic wise, next year I've already booked another expensive tour with the Cultural Experience, who, in spite of their daft name, are very good. Michael Leger, a really nice bloke, quite a young bloke. Well, I'm old now, but he seems young to me. From I think that some university in Texas, but he really does seem to know the 1813 campaign. Really nice guy, and he's not doing though. Next year, I'm doing a tour of Austerlitz and the battle leading up to Austerlitz, which involved, I imagine, going around Czechoslovakia. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So those are the main. The only other thing I've done is we played some sharp practice by the two fat lardies, some games of that. But that was, I guess, not really Napoleonic, because that was the War of 1812 in Canada and America. So it's basically been Yanks versus Brits and Canadians, which has been great fun. It's a nice set. I do like it, with some Indians and stuff thrown in. And I just reread actually Mr. Leger's book recently, and it is very good. It's Napoleon. It's very good. I also reread, because I'm going to Austerlitz, Duffy's classic book on Austerlitz, which is very good. I mean, it's probably out of date or something, but I think it's a good read. Christopher Duffy, one of my favourite historians anyway. And yeah, all that was very positive. I'm glad I reread both of them. They're both very good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Fascinating conversation so far. I'm about to end the recording. Please stay online as we continue the chat. And we're wrapping up this month's Rally Point as our annual wrap-up for 2024. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you. So next time, why not join us here at the Rally Point in January, when we will be looking at this Battle Command Experience wargaming and what we're able to achieve. Contact Dominic and I for your Zoom invite, and our details are at the end of the video. Share Rally Point with your friends so we can hear from them as well. Any previous Rally Point chats are up on our YouTube channel. And if you've enjoyed the Rally Point, please leave a quick review. So it's good morning from me, and it's good night from him.
Good night.
And